Day, everyone. Welcome and
Hey,
thank you for joining the Telecom Review webinar. Today's topic is on the trends in 5G and digital transformation. My name is Ming Chan. I'm an associate partner at PMP Strategy, a global strategy consulting firm, and I have the privilege of moderating a distinguished panel of industry experts on the topic today. So as we know, the development of 5G and ongoing digital transformation are reshaping industries globally. We know what 5G is capable of: multi-gigabytes peak data speeds, low latency, greater reliability, and so on. Our panelists bring a wealth of knowledge in navigating this digital journey and are here to share their insights on several key topics. So we'll first discuss 5G use cases, integration of 5G AI and automation, then about the development and rollout, decision around public versus private infrastructures, and how to develop sustainable networks. And finally, looking ahead, touching on the role of collaboration and innovation, as well as strategies for digital transformation. Towards the end of the discussion, we will initiate a poll that will flash on your screens, and you can then submit your answers. We will then open the floor to questions from the audience at the end. Joining us today are representatives from leading organizations at the forefront of 5G telecoms landscape, from both the vendors as well as the operators. We have with us Mohammad Radwan, Director of Strategy and Architecture, NEC GCC, Noman Wahid, CTO, Middle East, Mobile Networks, Nokia, as well as Ersan Omers, Head of Technology, Strategy and Planning, Vodafone Qatar, and finally Majid Kusam, VP Business Development, IoT and AI, EN Enterprise. Welcome to you all. I would now like to call upon the panelists to briefly introduce themselves, after which we'll proceed with the session. Perhaps starting with you, Mohammed.
Thank you, Ming, and thanks for having us. And I'm happy to be here with this great panel. So I'm Mohammad Radwan. I'm the Strategy and Architecture Director at NEC Gulf. I've been with NEC for almost 2 years and been in this industry for almost 25 years. Working most of my work was architecture, designing solution for the telco, for the government, cloud, and big enterprise. I'm actually a former CTO, a mentor, and a book author as well. And I used to have I have my own channel, YouTube channel, where I actually discuss 5G as well. But now, due to the workload, the channel is a bit on pause. Thank you all.
Thanks, Mohammed. Noman?
Okay, all right. So thanks, Ming. And delighted to be here joining this panel discussion today with my honored colleagues as well. So my name is Noman Wahid. I'm basically the CTO for Nokia in Middle East. I have been with Nokia for almost 25 years, working in different parts of the world. And I'm based in Dubai currently. I moved back to Middle East region since 2012. So I've been here since the advent of 5G launches in Middle East area. Thank you.
Great, welcome, Noman. And Ersan?
Hi, I'm Ersan Emirish from Qatar, Vodafone. I have been working in telco industry for more than 24 years. And I have worked in Nortel Networks R&D, US, Canada, Turkey bases. And then jumped into the Vodafone journey in UK and Turkey, and afterwards Myanmar. And last 5 or 6 years, I have been working in Vodafone Qatar, in charge of head of technology strategy, planning, and PMO department. Nice to meet you.
Great, welcome, Ersan. And Marge, would you like to say a few words?
Absolutely. Thank you very much, and a pleasure to be here also with my colleagues and friends, panelists. So my name is Majid Kusam. I work at EN, which is Etisalat and the Global Technology Conglomerate Group. and I have been actually part of this group since 2007, so now a good 16, 17-year journey across different roles and different departments. Most recently now, I had the commercial team that supports end enterprise, which is a unit of end that supports organizations in their digital transformation journey, utilizing the latest tools, technologies, and platforms. Pleasure to be.
Great, thank you, and welcome to you all. All right, without further ado, let's dive right into the conversation. So I would like to start with the topic on best practices for 5G use cases and monetization. And if I could pose the question to you, Norman, there's been a lot of discussion about 5G and what the future might bring. But practically speaking, what are the key use cases in the near term, at least, for 5G monetization? And how can businesses effectively capitalize on them?
All right. Yeah, thanks, Ming. So, so I've been here in the Middle East for when we had the first commercial launches in the Gulf countries since 2018, right? We had Saudi, we had UAE markets and other GCC countries launching 5G networks. And what we see compared to the previous technologies, the rollout and adoption of 5G has been faster than any of the previous generations. If you look at the total number of 5G connections, we expect that by the end of 2023, we'll be almost close to 2 billion subscribers. And that number is expected to grow to 8 billion by 2028. So that's a significant growth in terms of adoption of 5G rate compared to the previous technologies. And we see that the service providers across different parts of the world, they still continue to deploy 5G despite of the global macroeconomic condition and the geopolitical uncertainties that the industry is facing globally. From a GSA perspective, if you look at the number of commercial 5G deployed networks, we're like around 300 operators that have deployed commercial CSPs, commercial 5G networks, right? So, and then we are expecting more and more of these operators will continue to deploy and offer 5G services. 5G is supposed to overtake 4G in terms of the number of subscription by 2029. So it will become the dominant technology compared to the previous ones, right? When you look at the behavior of the consumers with the advent of 5G, we have seen that the smart data traffic has risen almost 3 times or will increase 3 times by 2028, right? 5G subscriber, what we have seen typically from the networks, they make greater and more frequent use of the digital entertainment services on their smartphone, whether it's video, whether it's gaming or immersive reality services compared to 4G reasons, right? 4G users. So then we see that there have been a lot of talks about how do we monetize from the 5G. We have seen, I mean, there was a study done by GSMA where they have done analysis of different markets, mostly from the European, South Korea, and North American markets. They have seen that prior to the launch of 5G services, these CSPs were experiencing a negative growth in the ARPU. And as soon as 5G was launched, that trend was reversed. So ARPU had a positive response to the launch of 5G. Europe is sort of lagging a little bit behind because they weren't very aggressive in terms of deploying 5G, although they're slowly catching up. When it comes to the main use cases that we see with the 5G launches, of course, the first one that we saw was enhanced mobile broadband, right? which is one of the key pillars of 5G when we talk about URLC, URLC, which is ultra reliable, low latency, and also a massive machine type communication. So extreme mobile broadband was the first one because, of course, what we see and experience that 70% of the mobile traffic is using video, right? That was one of the common ones. Then what we have seen this fixed wireless access as a replacement to DSL connectivity, right? Out of those 300 networks that have been commercially deployed, 40% of these networks has also deployed fixed wireless access services, right? And this is where we see that there's quite a common or trend to offer fixed wireless access as a use case to the 5G subscribers. So in the Middle East market, of course, we have seen also success stories across UAE markets, Saudi, Qatar, and other GCC countries as well. On top of that, we see if operators are able to combine and differentiate services with their package for 5G, the uptake is even higher. I can give you one example from South Korea, where SKT has launched their own metaverse platform, which is called the IFLand. And this is basically a social kind of metaverse platform where a group of friends can come together and they can watch some programs and basically socialize. But now they are working on to extend this platform by so you can attend virtual meetings or you can attend concerts and things like that. Approximately on a monthly basis, IFLand users are approximately 2.6 million subscribers per month, which represents almost 25% of the let's say the population. So if all these rich services are combined with the 5G services, I think the consumer really see the value for adopting 5G, and they are able to use better services in addition to the just using as data services. Cloud gaming is also something that we see is gaining a lot of growth across the globe as well. So operators, they are able to also offer cloud gaming as part of their 5G subscription. We see that there's quite a traction to then adopt 5G compared to 4G. So if I want to summarize the main use cases that we see, of course, the enhanced mobile broadband, which is trying to offload the traffic from your current 4G because it could be limited in terms of the spectrum. So you're offloading those users to 5G with better experience. Then we have fixed wireless access, which is basically home 5G. And then we see this additional 5G services, which are kind of social, metaverse, and cloud gaming.
Thanks, Noman. I think that covers quite a lot of use cases. I guess what about in terms of industries? Which industries have we seen are making the most significant strides in monetizing 5G, and what lessons or best practices can we learn from there? Perhaps again, before I go to the operators, maybe from another vendor perspective, perhaps Mohammed, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, thank you, Ming. Actually, I will build on top of what my colleague Noman just mentioned. For me, we can consider it two parts. Let's think first about the CSP, the telco, the one who invests billions of dollars to build this 5G. So for them, they start working on how to monetize their investment. And as Norman mentioned, the two maybe most killer applications so far is the enhanced mobile broadband and fixed wireless access. Fixed wireless access makes a lot of sense for the geographically, the big countries geographically where they don't have fiber penetration, very high percentage. Here maybe in the Emirates, we have more than 97% fiber penetration. So maybe fixed wireless access is not meant to such countries, but for other countries like Australia, America, this makes a lot of sense. And as you can see, maybe some of the report expecting that by 2027, 50% of the traffic will be contributed by fixed wireless access. So this is from in regards of the telco, from the telco perspective. But in addition to that, I want to highlight something very important. Like 5G is not more about like the consumer, the individual. It's more like a service-based architecture. You know, the SBA. This is something very come into the genes of 5G or the promise of the 5G. So we are not only targeting the residential, the consumer, we are targeting the businesses, the enterprises, the government, and so on. So in my point of view, in my previous also experience, I saw many of these verticals start adopting 5G, either public or non-public, which we call it private 5G. So as example, some of the smart manufacturing start utilizing 5G. And they may use like a single private 5G, or they can utilize a hybrid model. So maybe for their connection with the internet with other users, they will use the public 5G, and they can deploy private 5G inside the manufacturer to help them doing some remote management, to help them doing some vehicle guided access or guided control, to help them, like in some countries, for example, in some factories in Japan, you will have maybe some few skilled expert or few skilled labor which can manage multiple factory. So as example, you have a factory in the capital and you have like 10 factories around the city. Okay, so you don't want to hire like this highly salary, highly skilled people in everywhere. So maybe one guy can manage all the remote factories using augmented reality and virtual reality, and this actually will improve the CapEx, OpEx, and so on. So this is using 5G as an enabler, and top of it, you can start building your own application. I give an example of smart manufacturing. Telemedicine is also huge. Like it started during COVID, and now people like start using it to have, like, an example, instead of going to the hospital, you can go to telemedicine, remote surgery. Hopefully, in the future, robotic surgery started a few years back, but like some people still doesn't have like the confidence to go and do a surgery using a robot. But I think it's become more mature. And finally, I want to give the last example is for government. In some specific situation, for some governmental entities, maybe for them, instead of building a network using fiber, and fiber is very expensive, maybe for they can start investing in and maybe can utilize some of the telco as well to build a private 5G dedicated for their use. This will be a secure, more control, and for sure maybe it will help them to control their capex and opex investment.
Thanks, Oman. That's really interesting. And I guess from an operator's perspective, are there any live case studies in the region that you can quote? Perhaps Much, would you like to comment from an operator's perspective?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think from an operator perspective, and maybe just to continue on what my colleague also was mentioning, there's two ways to look at it, because operators today serve both consumers and a B2C and a B2B environments, right? So when you serve consumers, you are enabling 5G for faster downloads, for enabling certain use cases like augmented reality, virtual reality, gaming, and that's for the public population, right? So anybody who would use the 5G network would be able to access those, and this is already, here in the UAE, for example, enabled on the Etisalat network. There are some also other interesting use cases. We always think of 5G as an enabler for those use cases, and those are digital use cases. So a very recent also example, a few years ago, we successfully completed with DMCC, which is the Dubai Multi-Commodity Center. It's the largest free trade zone that's located in Dubai and houses, both certain sectors like commodities, energy, steel, metals, and agricultural commodities, and at the same time also residential units. What we partnered with them to transform that whole district into a smart district powered by 5G. Okay, so we sort of installed a number of smart solutions, for example, that support energy consumption, asset and building management, parking, street lighting, monitoring and monitoring air quality, noise pollution, traffic monitoring, etc. As soon as you sensorize everything within a smart district, this is where the power of the 5G network comes in. Because the 5G network not only gives you, lower latency, or sorry, higher bandwidth, but also gives you lower latency, and you can also prioritize and have a higher quality of service for services that are common across the infrastructure and in smart cities as well. This is an example, and this is a live use case. And of course, there's also a very famous use case, which is Expo 2020. It's the world's greatest and largest show, and we were proud to. Etisalat was proud to be the official telecommunication and digital services premier partner for Expo 2020, and that was probably one of the first sites that had the fastest 5G on Earth. I think there were official tests done, and it was the claim was verified that it was the fastest 5G site on Earth. To not just 5G for the sake of 5G, but 5G of course for consumers, but also 5G for Expo 2020 as an organizer, and for international participants and the pavilions that were over there that consumed and benefited from 5G. So when we talk about 5G, we always talk about what kind of consumer, but also more importantly, business digital use cases that can be enabled that leverage the power of this network.
Great, thanks much. And perhaps what about use cases from the public sector? Anything that you've seen and how that differs from the private sector, perhaps? Again, from an operator's perspective, Ersan, would you like to comment on that?
Indeed, yes, thank you. Public and private sectors, indeed, by the nature, builds based on different motives and different interests, such as on the public side, for the public side especially, nowadays, by the way, smart cities and smart stadiums, kind of public safety or healthcare related stuffs are, and education, can be summarized as 4 or 5 pillars or use cases public sector to give better services to their city. But their dilemma or their obstacle is to provide those kind of services to citizens by considering the tax collected. In this regard, from my view, the public side of the implementation primarily started with the smart meters. It is early adoption of everything indeed. But later on, because of the 5G main driver, which is delay sensitive, the real-time smart city management is started for the public sector. And for these smart cities, indeed, it has started from the B2C, which is smart homes, and smart homes came together, then the smart buildings is established, and smart buildings came together with the traffic and all the public services, and smart cities are started to be discussed. Apart from the smart cities, which is mainly purpose of the traffic flow and energy efficiency for the governments, nowadays also the public safety, which is the monitoring and surveillance with videos in order to follow up emergency cases and the public security related issues, for governments to provide better services for the citizens who are living inside. Indeed, these two would be the first two main, how can I say, pioneer points for the public and government part. On top, we are lucky or unlucky, this is both. During COVID, the public sector realized one important details about the education system, which is home education or online education. By chance, and by chance with conditions and circumstances that mandates government, they very fastly implemented home education on the training system and the virtual classrooms services for their all students. This was one another pillar, which can be considered as a third for public sector, which achieved so far as it looks. On top, from my point of view, healthcare consideration for the public sector has been started in order to monitor remote healthcare services for the citizens in order to manage their resources by means of energy, by means of money, by means of time for giving healthcare services to their citizens. And finally, again, right after wildfire cases, which has happened recent years, last 2 years, in Australia, in US, in some Europe countries, they have started to monitor a kind of remote monitoring system for forestry, agricultural areas, again for the public purpose to protect their assets, indeed their national assets, indeed world heritage assets, to monitor those kind of environmental related circumstances, to take a preventive, preemptive, or proactive, whatever we can call, solutions to stop fire. Moreover, in Japanese and the Singapore and the Southeast Asia, which I have worked before, they have early adopter earthquake or tsunami systems, which shall be considered as a disaster, natural disaster cases that can be managed through 5G network as well by governments. And in a nutshell, smart cities, public safety, healthcare, education, and environment monitoring chronologically looks like going to be important for governments and public sector to consider 5G because of real-time, almost real-time delay of data collection for them.
Thanks, Ersan. I think it's interesting to see how, how pervasive 5G has become in just a few short years. I think I would like to move to a, very much a related topic. And I guess no discussion today is complete without, touching on, the impact of AI and automation. So I guess it'd be a question for you, Majd, in your role. We're seeing how AI and automation are, shaping many industries. How do you see AI, ML and automation shaping the future of telecoms, and how can, both telcos and vendors utilize this technology?
I think, as you said, there's no single discussion that you have today, any part of the ecosystem, as a telco, as a vendor, as a customer, as a business, probably as human beings as well, where you don't hear about AI, especially now with the advent of generative AI as well. I think for the way we look at it is, for AI to work, it needs to have data. Okay, that's very, very important. And there's, between structured and unstructured data, there's a lot of data that needs to be stored, to be structured, needs to be transmitted, needs to be consumed in a way and sliced and diced for AI and for machine learning models to actually work. So I'm not going to go into the data bit, but obviously I think we all can visualize power of telco networks from anywhere, from wired and wireless networks, and of course 5G, in the gathering of data from any kind of endpoints, sensors, what have you, to reach to a point where it can be consumed and you can have the right AI algorithms on top to generate predictive and preventive use cases. What I'll probably talk about a little bit is some of the use cases we're seeing in some specific industries. Okay, there is a big drive now, not just in the UAE but also across the region, world, around what we call Industry 4.0. Right, and Industry 4.0 is nothing but the transformation of Industry X. The industry can be anything, but I will give, for example, the manufacturing industry. The manufacturing industry is undergoing tremendous transformation, utilizing digital technology and as well as utilizing AI to optimize operations, to enhance productivity, to also unlock certain levels of efficiency within those manufacturing operations. So some examples, for if you talk about maintenance, okay, moving from reactive to predictive maintenance. So you can actually have AI-enabled predictive maintenance where you analyze large amounts of your data, you can actually predict potential failures in the equipment. You can proactively enable maintenance interventions. Okay, so how does that help a manufacturer? It minimizes any downtime, especially unplanned downtime, optimizes schedules, and in essence and in short, it extends the lifespan of critical assets. Another one, for example, also is in supply chain. As a manufacturer, or supply chain works not only in manufacturing industries as well. So AI can play a pivotal role in optimizing supply chain management within that enterprise. So you can leverage AI algorithms to sort of gain real-time visibility into your inventory levels, your demand patterns. How is your fleet working? What are the demand patterns from your actual consumers or your supply ecosystem, and from your production facilities and capacities as well. So, again, in a nutshell, what does it enable you to do, or what does it support you to do? Have better, more accurate demand forecasting, better inventory management, better production planning. So there's a number of AI use cases specifically within Industry 4.0 within patent that are helping take shape and make use of. As a telco today, not just internally but also in a way building something that can be consumed and add value to the digital use cases that I spoke about earlier as well. There are some very interesting strides, bold strides that, for example, companies like Microsoft are taking with OpenAI and the utilization of generative AI. So they're building, if you notice today, Copilot to Office 365, their M365 suite. And that's very interesting, right? But that maybe as a consumer, you would find it beneficial. The big question is, and I think there's also a lot of work around that, how can we utilize generative AI and large language models, not maybe in English, but also bilingual large language models, to support Copilot use cases, in brackets, for for enabling digital use cases. To give you an example, you can have a smart utility platform, okay, that connects meters and provide proactive readings to consumers. But then imagine you utilize generative AI to give it additional value added layer on top, where a consumer can ask a question to an interactive chatbot. It's powered by generative AI, and that has maybe access to bilingual large language model, and ask them any question about their consumption, or maybe their future prediction, or what should they do to enable their next monthly electricity bill or water consumption go down, and it would respond with some recommendations on how would they do that. So this is the real power of AI in a use case which is relevant to an industry and to a consumer. That's the real power of AI. We just need to see where is the relevance, how can consumers actually utilize it. That's where you get the most.
Thank you, Matt. I guess what about from the the back-end perspective, whether it's network optimization and so on, how can operators differentiate themselves by using AI? Person, would you like to comment on this from a operator perspective?
You can hear me, right? Pardon.
Yes, I can hear you now. Yeah.
Indeed, as Majid has said, the information which is flowing through everywhere, indeed, via mobile phone, via internet, is comprehensively and exponentially increased. For the operator sides, and indeed the main pillar is customer pipe that operator is providing customer to access, which data flows in. And the other hand, the services and the products that customer is using. There are three pillars. In this regard, operators already created some capabilities by using AI. First started from the customer side, which customer comes first for the operator. What was it? To automate and to use generative AI and chatbots and telemeters in the call centers in order to increase customer touch points efficiency and to increase customer engagement through digital platforms to shorten the time of the products and services enablement whenever, wherever that customer requests from operator to serve. This was the first step indeed, what operators has differentiated themselves to leverage customers' benefit and to leverage their profitability. The journey right after the customers started to, how can I say, penetrated through inside of the network. Because of this, the first part and the network optimization, network automation, and indeed, moreover, self-optimized networks coming from. By considering too many men engaged or human intervention, instead of human intervention to solve operational circumstances in the network, an automated AI and ML algorithms has been run to self-optimize network itself according to considering resources by means of energy and the traffic densification around the network. This was the second part, which I can point out that operators has some use cases implemented for the ML and AI. These things were at least first two pieces for the operators of the big puzzle. And afterwards, with the industrial revolution, as Majid has said, 4 and 5 is loading, by the way. 4 is not closed, but at the same time, 5 is loading with the name of customization. What I'm trying to say is personalized offers for the customers by using AI and ML. It is started first in the retails industry, like Amazon or like AliExpress, Alibaba, and so on, or eBay. Then these capabilities are started to move or engage or move or evolved through the whole sectors, not only telecom, well, or to provide personalized offers and to the customers by generating ML-driven or generative AI-driven products for each customer, maybe for each customer's self-preferences as well. This was the fourth one I would point out for the operators that I have been observing. They are differentiating themselves. Customers, serve them and give them best quality network, no matter where they are. By the way, these also evolved any-to-any connectivity because of FWA, fiber, and mobile. All these connectivities are almost merged into one pipe nowadays. Long story, network efficiency and optimization, use AI ML to implement self-optimized networks to reduce your operational cost, to increase the quality. Manage customers with the digital channels and differentiate your products per customer. No, I mean, segmentation almost reduced to customer base. And the segments are shrinking considerably a lot, according to my observation for the operator size.
Thank you, Hassan. It's interesting to hear how our operators are using through the value chain. I'd like to move on. If there's something else on the topic of AI, I'd like to actually move on to the question around public versus private, right? I think this is something that Mohammed, you touched on earlier. And I guess from a vendor perspective, there's been a lot of interest in private 5G networks in particular. So how should the decision process come about? What factors should businesses consider when deciding between public, private, or indeed hybrid infrastructure for 5G. Norman or Mohammed, would you like to comment on this?
Okay, maybe I can take the first jab at this one. So I think we briefly touched upon this topic earlier in the discussion with the colleagues as well. But just to elaborate, I think with 5G, we are seeing a dramatic change in terms of a major disruptor for many industries and for many years to come. I mean, 5G is expected not to only address the regular consumer customers, but also the private and the enterprise, right? So 5G is expected it will shape how individuals and connected objects communicate, as well as how enterprise or the private industries operate. So if you look at the current networks, how they are built, so they are not very flexible in terms of offering the best services to either the enterprise in particular. And Mohammed alluded to the service-based architecture, which is a key for 5G as well, right? So with 5G, we are expecting that now the Bridget and the complex networks of today will be transformed into more digitalized and automated and responsive for the CSPs and enterprise alike to address basically the end customers. When we talk about 5G, we are talking about the three main pillars, right? We talk about the enhanced mobile broadband. We talked about URLCC, which is about low latency, and of course the massive machine type communication. So whatever sector an enterprise or private network is capable of offering, CSPs or the operators can redesign 5G services with the right performance criteria to match each organization priorities, right? So in the wireless networks of today, not all the use cases share identical requirement. For example, fixed wireless access use case is different from a cloud gaming or metaverse or eMBB kind of use case, right? So we need to ensure that as part of our networks, we are able to cater for all the potential use cases that require either high throughput, low latency, and high reliability, right? So the private networks that we see, they can provide this purpose-built solution, and they can be personalized and implemented to address the distinct needs. One of the key, let's say, advantage of 5G is network slicing. That will help to basically address all these unique use cases to ensure all the SLAs are met, right? So whether it's a public safety use case, or if it's automation in industry, or is for smart cities, right? So all these particular use cases can be addressed by offering 5G and network slicing. Also, one of the other key things is agility and ability to offer these use cases as fast as possible. So earlier this year, during Barcelona, Nokia launched this AnyRAN solution. So we know that cloud network has been virtualized for quite some time. And now as part of this AnyRAN solution, even we are offering radio or the RAN access to be cloudified as well. So just in a nutshell, what is this AnyRAN? So we are targeting any customer, so CSP or enterprise, they can offer. And here we are talking about flexibility in the architecture. So either it can be a fully cloudified architecture or a hybrid architecture, or combination of both. I think both these virtualized and the hybrid and the traditional or classical build networks will coexist for quite some time. And then you can host this on any compute hardware. For example, we are working with the likes of Dell and HP. They just bring the hardware or the servers, and then we can run the software on that. In addition to that, we are also working with some of the key hyperscalers like AWS, Google, IBM, and Microsoft to even host those, let's say, functionalities in the cloud domain as well. One of the examples of hosting these virtualized functions in a public cloud comes from the Dish network, where Nokia is one of the vendors, and we have demonstrated the successful hosting of the cloud functions in AWS environment. So this cloudification also provides flexibility and agility and fast time to the market for the enterprise and the CSPs alike. From an enterprise point of view, their key concern is about the reliability, right? So if I say the reliability beats the bandwidth, which beats the latency, because for enterprise, the connectivity is of paramount importance in addition to the data privacy. So what I see that, or we see, is that there will be different models for the private networks. So they can be hosted entirely on-premise. They can be also hosted wholly by the CSP, so everything can be off-premise, or it could be a mix of both on and off-premise, right? So we can have different models where part of the networks are hosted in the CSP, in the private network environment, or the CSP can fully take over and provide this as a service to the enterprise or the private networks. And we are working with the wide variety of enterprise customers across the globe, mainly in transport, energy, smart cities, government, public safety, and different kind of industries. A few examples that I would like to quote, one maybe from Finland, which is about Scandic, which is a mining company, and their applications are basically hosted by the CSP by the name of Telia in Finland at the edge cloud, right? So all the applications are hosted by the CSP on the edge, which is basically closer to the Scandic operations, so they're able to easily access the application and the data. Of course, in the Middle East region, we are also very active and working with different CSPs as well. So a couple of recent examples, for example, like from Jordan, we are working with the CSPs for the smart port in Aqaba. In Saudi Arabia, we just announced our collaboration with Aramco to support the priority industry. So our collaboration is built to develop advanced industry 4.0 that Mike was earlier referring to. And our solutions aim to accelerate digital transformation of industry globally and within the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and of course within Middle East and North Africa region as well.
Great, thanks, Noman, for that perspective. I guess when something, related, just taking a step back, when we think about the wider connectivity infrastructure, how do investments in things like fiber, DCs, and even satellite, LEO satellites in particular, contribute to the broader goal of enhancing 5G? Mohammed, would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, it's a good question. Thanks, Ming. So I'll carry also again on what Noman mentioned. Before that, I want to just highlight something like as part of the UN SDG, you know that currently there are around 2.7 billion person is not connected to the internet. This is actually huge, and this is actually affecting the part of the digital divide. And as part of the UN SDG, we as people working on the telecommunication, we have a goal and aim, try to solve this digital divide. So I think one of the areas which can be a good solution for it is LEO, which is low orbit satellite. Okay, so this low orbit satellite, I believe, is not a must of 5G, but it's one of the main component of the 6G. So there's some now, like there's some trials, some production for the LEO, but it will be one of the main vehicle which 6G will use. So this is the first part of the question. When it comes to the second part, before answering how 5G require these changes in the infrastructure, including the mobile, the X hole, the data center, the edge and far edge. I want to highlight some important facts about 5G. So 5G promise includes some key capabilities. So I think most of the audience know, like 5G, we are trying to reach 1 millisecond for the application and user. So in order to achieve 1 millisecond, you need to be very close to the end user. And I will elaborate more in a second. The second very key parameter is the number of connection per square kilometer. This is actually going to hundreds of thousands, close to 1 million of connection in a square kilometer. It's actually a huge, and this is mainly due to the massive machine type communication or the IoT sensor and all of this kind of connection. And finally, we are expecting the data, the peak data rate to reach up to 20 gig. So in order to achieve all of that, the access and the transport, the X-hole, this layer must have a lot of enhancement, a lot of innovation. And I will start with, as Norman mentioned, like, let's take a use case, network slicing. Like you need to provide the bandwidth for the enhanced mobile broadband and similar. You need, as example, Emirates and Saudi are investing in autonomous cars. I believe even most of the countries, they have very ambitious plans. As example, Emirates, they are planning by 2026 to have almost 25% of the vehicle autonomous vehicle. And Saudi have very similar target in the subsequent years. So in order to achieve this, we need to provide this ultra reliable low latency. So to do that, we need to have the network to be ready. We need to invest in the edge and far edge, and also the network should support network slicing. So the radio, the transport, the mobile core, all this layer should support network slicing. So maybe you need to start from the cell site router, this small device which is very close to the cell. This device should support a kind of network slicing, either using segment routing or different VPN or whatever. This is one area of investment, and I believe many of the vendors in the transport already supporting this vision for network slicing. Okay, the second part, as I mentioned, is edge and far edge. And again, like we are talking about any RAN, some people call it cloud RAN or virtualized RAN, and there is an open RAN alliance. So in order also to achieve, be close to the customer and provide maybe CUPS, control user plane separation, and provide some of the user plane very close to the customer, like UPF, and also like maybe the CU and DU of the RAN network. All of this virtualization and cloudification require bringing the compute very close to the user using far edge. And as Norman mentioned, again, also we can use whatever compute, and on top of it we do virtualization, either like VNF or CNF, and start building a specific application, maybe for the 5G core itself and the 5G radio itself, in addition to some other application like gaming and so on. So I believe like it's a huge topic. It's multiple areas, and each of them has already a lot of innovation, a lot of changes. And I believe one of the key things that also need to be changed is the mindset for the engineering and people. Like instead of, I think most of the engineers and the young people now start studying cloud, virtualization, Kubernetes. So this is actually the key technology for the last few years and for the upcoming maybe 5-10 years.
Great, thanks, Mohammed. That's an interesting perspective. I'd like to switch gears slightly to another topic that's of a lot of relevance today. We've seen how the climate agenda is becoming center stage across many organizations and industries. In what ways can telecoms industry accelerate and support these goals? Much would you like to comment, I guess, from an operator's perspective?
Sure. I think just like AI, I think this is one very, 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 very hot trending topic, right? Everybody's talking about it, especially here around in the region now, because last year Egypt hosted COP27, and this year, actually 2 weeks, UAE is hosting COP28. But there's a lot of hype around it. Not just hype, I would say. No, there's to be honest, a lot of activity and the commitments that organizations, businesses are doing to first understand, assess where they are on the sustainability journey, number one. Number two, also try to define their roadmap. What is it that they want to achieve, and how will they reach it? Maybe for telcos, I can talk about our journey as Etisalat and I can summarize it by saying everything that EM does. Maybe bizarrely or funny enough, last year in an article from Telecom Review, we were participating in COP27, and we announced during COP27, our group CEO announced our commitment to net zero operations by 2030. Okay? And we plan to do that in several ways. One of them will sort of accelerate the decarbonization of our activities, focus on the modernization of our mobile network, deploying the latest generation of energy efficient radio equipment, both from the hardware and software perspective, improve and increase the utilization, the implementation and utilization of the renewable energy. And there's so much that you can do, on your own. But you also probably need to look at carbon offsetting. Okay, so we were exploring carbon offsetting initiatives to help us achieve those targets, and specifically around Scope 1 and Scope 2. So a lot of telco organizations are moving in that direction to support their transition to greener operations for the system. There are also some other ways that maybe I can talk about beyond the telecom industry, but utilizing and leveraging the networks that telecom operators provide, okay, to support sustainability practices and sort of green energy cases. I think my colleague spoke at the beginning around autonomous vehicles. Okay, I think the power of 5G network is that the 5G network provides is vast. And that could enable autonomous vehicles, smarter cities, and there's a number of use cases that are enabled within smart cities to support sustainability. One example is smart utilities. So today in utility organizations, there's one very nice example in UAE and Dubai in specific, to be honest. The utility company of Dubai, leveraging the power of AI and leveraging the connectivity from the telecom operator, from EM, and deploying certain gateways and digital tools, enabled a very interesting use case to improve the detection and lower the consumption of water. So they call it a high water usage alert. Okay, and I think they won some international awards for it as well. So what they did was when they enable a smart grid and a smart water meter, they collect obviously now data centralized. They have a history of data and readings, but they're able to see certain patterns. Today, if there is leakage, water leakage, if you leave a tap open, or if there's a leakage in a pipe or a pipe burst in a villa or house or whatever it is, you are able to detect automatic spikes in water consumption. So automatically you get an alert as a consumer that we have detected high consumption. Please check your taps and your water pipes and what have you. Very small but very powerful use case. Okay, just imagine how much water gets wasted sometimes from taps left open. Okay, and this way you are able to detect and give customer proactively a notification that they need to check. Of course, you can develop and enhance on this use case to enable it to be maybe more pinpoint the exact issue. So this is just maybe one of the ways where digital technologies, power of 5G networks and mobile networks, and the power of AI all come together to support sustainability agenda. And of course, there are many more: smart buildings, smart offices, anything that you can think that is smart, that is bringing efficiency, bringing utilizing technology to sort of support the sustainability goals of an organization and enterprise, leveraging these technologies. It supports the system.
Thanks much. Yeah, it's interesting to hear how, both how operators are using it both on their own operations, but also in use cases to support this agenda. Okay, thanks for that. I'd like to move on to the topic of collaboration and innovation. So we know, given the complexities of new technologies today, collaboration is crucial in driving innovation. I guess from a vendor perspective, how crucial is collaboration amongst industry players for 5G in particular? And what type of collaboration have you found most useful? Norman, would you like to comment, perhaps?
Yeah. Thank you, Ming. Yeah, so maybe I would like to start here with an African proverb, which goes like this, that if you want to go fast, you go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. And I think this is one of the lessons learned with our industry, that with 5G compared to the previous technologies, we had vendors and the CSPs who were taking the most of the decision and trying to figure out the functionality that was beneficial to them. But I think in 5G, this is a different approach, as we talked about this different architecture, agility and the options. So I see that for the first time, it's not only the vendors or the CSPs, but also the industries that are, let's say, representative of, like, let's say the 5G AA, which is the Automotive Association, or this 5G Alliance for Connected Industries and Automation, right? And then we also see the satellite providers also coming as part of this 3GPP for a 5G discussion, in order to have this open discussions of collaboration on how to best use the technology for the greater good of the mankind, right? So if you look at, again, we talked about EMBB, URLC, and massive machine type communication. They were addressed in the 3GPP releases starting from 15 and 17, right? Release 17 also introduced functionality that was applicable for the non-terrestrial network, which is basically communication through satellite. And then also we talked about the reduced capability, which is basically another form of IoT, but based on better functionality in 5G. And we see that release 18, which is currently under discussion, that will hopefully be finalized mid of next year. This will also bring further enhancements to the NTN or non-terrestrial networks, and also RedCap functionality. What Mohammed was mentioning earlier about this, let's say the non-ubiquitous coverage, right? There was an interesting report published by Link, which is one of the satellite providers. What they said, that only currently the 25% of world land mass is served by cell tower. The rest of the land and all the world oceans have no coverage, right? And at any given moment around the world, 15% of the planet's 5.2 billion mobile phones, they are out of coverage. I think most of us here have experience getting out of coverage. Maybe we are on the road or we are off-roading. Even in UAE, there are certain white spots, right? And these are the topics that need to be covered through the satellite, because they provide a huge potential in order to cover those particular, let's say, white spots and critical communication requirement as well. Earlier, we saw that, last year, iPhone, they also launched this emergency services through their partnership with Global Star, right? So, which meant that if you were outside the coverage area and then you had some incident or you needed some support, there was a particular way that you could point it in a certain direction, and the phone then would connect you through satellite to the local enforcement agencies, so they can give you the right support, right? So those are the few use cases that are critical to be provided through the satellite communication as well. And there's a lot of potential with this direct to satellite communication, right? So, and this is not something which will take revenue away from the CSPs, but rather actually augment. So we are saying that if you look at the direct to satellite communication, we are expecting that new almost 400 million new subscribers will be added by year 2030, right? So there's a huge potential in terms of what we can do with our existing networks to ensure that we provide the best of the connectivity. A couple of very practical examples. So at Nokia, we've been working very closely with some of these satellite providers, and namely we have been working with AST. Earlier in the year, we demonstrated the first LTE and 5G data call working with AT&T and AST, right? So, I mean, this is not only on the PowerPoint slide, but these are something that we can actually start implementing. And we expect these kind of services to be commercialized in second half of 2024. And of course, there are other NTN or satellite providers like Eutelsat or Starlink and Link, etc., which are basically coming up to address all these unique use cases that as an industry we can benefit.
Great, thanks, Norman. In terms of innovation, what emerging technologies have you seen that you believe will play a pivotal role in shaping the future of 5G? Again, from a vendor's perspective, Mohammed, any thoughts there?
Yes, Meng. I believe like Majdan already mentioned some of them, like AI and ML. Everybody now is talking about AI ML. Also, like I believe openness is not a technology, but as you mentioned, like currently as example, I believe we have very important initiatives. One is Open RAN Alliance, and the way they are trying to make the RAN more open. This would add to innovation. As example, we have also this concept of RIC. I think this radio intelligent controller with AI and machine learning. This RIC can manage Open RAN and traditional RAN vendor or single RAN vendor. So with this as example, NEC, we own Netcracker, so have our own RIC solution with AI, ML. You can have a lot of use cases embedded inside 5G. As example, like they have two concepts, R app and X app. X app, which require less than 1 second response, and R app require more non-real time, real time and non-real time, or they call it near real time to be more specific. So this is one of the area with AI and machine learning, really a key pivotal instrumental for the 5G innovation. Another part, also related to AI, especially, like when we go to the multimeter wave, the coverage will be reduced, and also this actually the spectrum will be more prone to interference and obstacle. Okay, so maybe you as a user, if you have like multimeter wave coverage, even inside your office, if you are behind a pole or something or a wall, you will get disconnected. No one was just mentioned. So there was actually, we developed like and also a technology using AI. So the AI can use it from the radio, can predict that this user is walking in this direction and he will face an obstacle. So the antenna automatically will do a handover from this the current antenna to another one, which will not be going to face this obstacle. So this is also a second kind of innovation, also related to AI. As well, there's many other use cases. I just like aware of the time, so I will just mention these two use cases and will hand it over back to you.
Thanks, Mohammed. No, that's really helpful. And I guess our final topic for the day, you can spend maybe a few minutes here, is around strategies to drive digital transformation. So I'd like to get the operator's view here. So what strategies have been most successful, you find, in driving digital transformation within the telecoms world? Hassan Ahmad?
Yeah, this is a big topic for the telecom operators, which needs to be indeed considered very carefully. As per our experiences, and my personal experience as well about the digital, one of the main before approaching any initiation will be to define your scope by considering your journeys and by considering your use cases. At the end of the day, consider you are attempting to transform a big ocean. You are attempting to paint the ocean, attempt to paint a big stuff. In order to achieve that, for transforming digitally for the telecom operators, defining all the pieces of the puzzles by considering your end-in-mind goal, and one journey, second journey, third journey, and all the business cases at the end of the day are going to be connected together in order to build your target strategic targets. Will be the most crucial and important part before starting any digital transformation journey for the operators. This is not only the one side of the moon. The other side of the moon will be, okay, you defined your use cases or the journeys, whatever you are going to transform, by considering your end-in-mind goal. How you are going to reach there will be built with your people and your organization. Whatever you are going to transform to, people, culture, and the processes need to be complemented and need to be considered in parallel for the drivers who are going to drive transformed shape of business in long run. These two, from my frankly saying, is sine qua non kind of mandatory consideration for telecom operators. The last one can be considered as what is your data, but this data is considered like two vertical, people and the scope, which is going to be connected with data, which should be considered as a structured in order to reach end-in-mind goal. With this context, to achieve successful digital transformation, the last step would be what I would say cultural transformation, which is a kind of cement of technological capabilities, organizational capabilities, glued with cultural transformation. This is what I would briefly recommend and strongly recommend for any operator without considering any industry, by the way, for all industry. To keep that into mind at the early stage of what you are going to do about it. Because I saw failure cases as well. Kind of a bitter taste, my experience.
Yeah. That's really helpful. Thanks for the holistic perspective. March, anything to add from an operator's perspective?
No, not to add, maybe just sorry, not to change, but maybe just augment what Ersan said, because I think he nailed it on the head. I would say when we talk about the end journey, okay, always start with the end in mind. Digital transformation is to enable a use case. Okay, now we always, in my role, I work with a lot of. We always, we see them, we support them, and hold them in those digital transformation journeys. If you don't have the use case in mind, what are the KPIs you're trying to achieve? Who are you trying to achieve it for? It is very difficult, maybe even virtually impossible to embark. You can embark on the transformation journey, but then you would have spent a lot of money, and you're not going to reach anywhere. Okay, because it's not about the journey; it's about the end result. So you need to identify those use cases, and it needs to make sense for the stakeholder for which it's being built. If it doesn't make sense, then it's beautiful. You tick a box, everybody will clap for you, but then there's no value behind it. The second thing about the culture, I would say one of the key things and key reasons we have seen, digital transformation projects fail is not just having the right people involved, okay, but also having the management involved, okay, because big digital transformation projects have the involvement and support of the key stakeholders at top. Very, 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 very important. It's crucial. If the decision makers are just only signing the checks to support a budget, but they're not closely monitoring it, they're not closely understanding and following the progress of the development of those use cases, then it's bound to fail. Okay, so it's very important that the executive management and maybe all the way up to the CEO of an organization are involved. When I spoke about an example of what we did with TMCC and the 5G powered smart district, this was driven from the top by the CEO of the organization himself. He was closely monitoring it because it's going to touch the residents living in his community, touch the businesses that are operating out of his district. So his reputation and stake of the organization is at heart. And the third thing, and very important, is the capable partner. So when you do a digital transformation journey, you can have the end goal in mind, you can have all the support, you can have the budget, but then sometimes you just rely on a poor network or ecosystem of partners, or maybe there are too many players, well, right? So you need to make sure you rely on a reliable partner. And what we have also seen in a lot of cases is companies, customers, even enterprises, they use a land and expand strategy. So they land few use cases, they focus on a few use cases, they make sure, as Urson said, the process, the culture has been transformed. If they land that use case, tell us the transformation of the culture and the mindset and the people is already there. They can just generate some more use cases. It becomes very, very easy. So for me, this is the sort of nutshell of digital transformation and how it will be successful.
Yani digest what you are transforming, then transform, then digest, transform, digest, transform.
Thanks much, and Asana. That's a very helpful view. I think we have covered the main sort of topics that we said we will cover. So thanks for that. I would like to get to the questions shortly from our audience. But first, I would like to start the poll. We have a few questions that we believe would come on screen. So the first one is around digital transformation accelerators. So, keen to get your views, folks on the call, as to what are some of, in your opinion, the main digital transformation accelerators. Do shout if you can't see the, yeah, I think you're seeing the question on the screen. Yeah, okay. And I guess meanwhile, while we're waiting for folks to get on the poll, have a think about what questions you'd like to ask our panelists in the remaining time we have. And yeah, feel free to drop in the chat, and we'll get to that in a few moments. Okay, I think the votes have stopped, so I'll just in this poll. Can you see the responses, or do I have to read them out? So from what I'm seeing here, you can see, okay. So 87% are saying everything and 13% saying the cloud. So it seems that all these things are quite important for digital transformation. So next question is around cost optimization and what elements differentiate 5G cost optimization, whether it's human HR, customized B2B services, network virtualization, and cloud location, or all of the above. Okay, so I think it's a bit of a mixed bag, but it seems all of the elements are important, followed by network virtualization.
Yeah.
And the third one is around sustainability. So we touched on that. And what have you seen in your industry, in your in your sector, in terms of initiatives that you've seen are effective for operators, whether it's renewable energy to green networks, whether it's the tools on AI, whether it's sunsetting legacy networks. Okay, so it looks like renewable energy to green networks. I think that is the leading answer for that. And finally, around network competitiveness. In your opinion, what have you seen, or what do you think is the element that most differentiates an operator, whether it's QoE, speed, or innovation in services? Okay, so it looks like QoE is the leading answer here, 67%, followed by, or 50%, followed by innovation network services. Okay, thanks for your participation, everyone, and for the poll. Any questions for the panelists? We have a few minutes remaining. Any questions you'd like to, whether it's topics we covered today, it could be topics we didn't cover today, questions we didn't ask. Anything you'd like to test with our panelists on the topic of 5G? Either everyone's thinking really hard or thinking about the next thing.
Yeah.
Maybe I can pose one, which I think is a more broad-based question. If no one has a question, again, feel free to drop in the chat or raise on the call. I guess my question is, again, quite a broad one, again, a catch-all perhaps. Is there anything in your conversations that we didn't cover today? Conversations in, with colleagues, with customers, with partners, that is coming up in 5G that we have not covered today? Any topics or questions or themes you are hearing and seeing in the market?
Yeah, I think we managed to cover, I think, the most critical and important part in terms of the monetization, or whether it was the agility, automation, or the green initiative. So I think, I think the key topics, I guess, have been covered.
I just want to add one point. Like today, we'll talk about like two topics: 5G and digital transformation. I saw some organization, and especially some CT, they are taking 5G as a chance to do the digital transformation. I think because like 5G, it's included as we discussed, like a lot of automation, AI, cloudification, virtualization. So they are taking like the chance of implementing 5G to do like the culture change and start their digital transformation journey. So I think their two topics are somehow, for sure, they are linked. But
Yep, that's a good point. Okay, final call for any questions for our panelists. Nope, I guess that's a good sign in a way that we've covered everything. I think we've been, quite exhaustive in our coverage of questions. So we've now come to the end of, yes.
I believe there's a question here in the chat. There's one question.
Is there? Let me see. All right, okay. Thanks, Mohammed. What is the most difficult challenge that operators are facing in a digital transformation journey?
To be honest, people. First is people. Why I'm saying this was very crucial. Whatever we are going to transform from shape A to shape B, which we are thinking better or which we are willing to have build a better, need to be fed by commercial and business targets together with technology capabilities. Any missing part of any of these two will cause problem at the end. Secondarily, with Majid, as very well said, C-level or ExCo level, if possible, CEO level of sponsorship going to be the second challenge for the success of any digital transformation. And people to define scope by considering technology and commercial, which is going to be sponsored by CEO. And top two, I would recommend that. I just would add data quality will be the third. But the most difficult one, define scope by considering what I'm going to sell and what I'm going to build. Link commercial and technology capabilities for building your transformed body. These three, I will say, crucial. Majid,
No, I totally agree. I think we need to, when you look at digital transformation, especially for an operator, okay, because operators are different than any other business, right? Regardless of the type of operator you are, there are a lot of very intricate delicacies between departments, bureaucracies, systems, platforms, legacy things, complex systems. So digital transformation, if it is within a specific team, within a specific department, which is rarely the case, okay, then it is. But digital transformation is always something that cuts across multiple departments. When you talk about an operator, departments work in, there's a lot of complexities between departments. Hence, got to the point of the topic needs to be elevated. It needs to be something that is monitored and driven from the top. Somebody that oversees multiple departments. Otherwise, it's not going to work because everybody is going to be, sadly saying this, but everybody is going to be fighting for a certain part of this transformation. Everybody is going to be claiming something. Everybody is going to be looking at it from his personal or that department agenda. It never works. The digital transformation for an operator, the outcome of it needs to mean something. It's either going to create an efficiency or an improvement in processes or a new innovation or a use case or a new product, right, for the consumer. So the outcome needs to be, for it to be valuable, for it to be rightly positioned. It's like an orchestra. The departments need to work in harmony. Otherwise, if one department decides to go on a tangent by itself, then you're going to hear noise. No?
Cacophony.
I like to use the analogy of the orchestra. Otherwise, you will not hear a very nice symphony.
Thank you, Hassan and Majid. I think that's really interesting. All right, we've now come to the end of our 90 minutes. So I'd like to thank firstly our panelists for their views and insights. Mohammad Radwan, Noman Wahid, Hassan, Amris, Majid Kusam, thank you very much again for your time and contributions today. And thank you to everyone thank you to everyone as well for joining this webinar, for your engagement as well as your questions. We hope it was insightful and useful. And we look forward to seeing you at the next event. So have a good rest of the day.
Thank you very much. Have a
Thank
nice
you very
day.
much. Bye-bye.